Our national federal liberal government is potentially looking at decriminalizing prostitution. Human trafficking is the fastest growing crime, in fact, in our nation. Hi, Doug Sharp, host of the National Leadership Briefing, and this is the Midweek Touchpoint. Well, there are so many things going on. It's hard to believe that a midweek touch point is going to cover them all. So I'm not even going to try, but let's just list them off. We've got an absolutely amazing, transformative movement going on in Ottawa and across the nation, all brought to us from people who were concerned about their freedoms and wanted to get together and gather and unite around very positive ideas and have a positive experience. That's the Truckers Freedom Convoy. We have a leadership election contest in one of the major political parties, a leadership election contest that is going to likely result in the election of who could become the next prime minister of our nation. We have activated prayer teams in massive numbers across the nation that are coming together to pray for what is coming ahead for our nation at this very important time in our nation's history. And we also have people having a heart for the vulnerable in a big way in our nation. I'm seeing that more and more these days. As you know, on the National Leadership Briefing, one of the very, very important four pillars is the third pillar, and that is that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable that live among us in our communities. So it is a prerequisite. Every single time we look at a candidate who's running for election, every time we look at a legislative proposal that's moving through the House of Commons, every time we're listening to deliberations at school board meetings, we are listening for an authentic level of protection to be provided to vulnerable people that live among us in our communities. That is our heart. That is what we want. And we don't want just window dressing. We don't want people that are motivated by the political calculus making decisions that look good. We want decisions made by governments that produce prosperity and safety and security in the lives of citizens. So this is what I wanted to talk about this week in particular on the Midweek Touchpoint, is I wanted to look through the lens of that third pillar at something that is immediately in front of us, and that is next Tuesday, that's February the 22nd, it is all across Canada is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day. And why do we care about human trafficking here in Canada? Because vulnerable people are being preyed upon in our nation. Human trafficking is the fastest growing crime, in fact, in our nation. And let me just give you some of these stats here so you get a sense as to what exactly I'm talking about. First of all, let's be clear what human trafficking is. It's the recruiting, transporting, transferring, receiving, holding, concealing, harboring, or exercising control over a person for the purposes of exploiting them. And that's the key word, is exploitation. Now, what we are looking at it right now, especially on the National Leadership Briefing, is that I've told you before, we're leading up to this moment in time, looking on the horizon where we can see our national federal liberal government is potentially, they're sure looking like they're going to do it, and they've said they wanted to do it before. They're looking at decriminalizing prostitution. And because human trafficking feeds into the industry of prostitution, and the individuals who are human trafficked become those that are locked and lost into prostitution, we care about the decisions of civil government because it is going to harm an awful lot of people. Let's listen to some of these stats, and I'm going to share these with you in the notes below. So below this video, you're going to have all this information, but let's listen to this for a second. First of all, the average age of recruitment in Canada is 13 years old. Now, in the Lower Mainland, there are human traffic victims as young as 10 to 12 years old. We also have seen, because of COVID, we've seen that it's a lot worse because human traffickers are becoming very sophisticated online predators, and they are gathering up and they're hunting out there in our communities online. So it's not just in the schoolyards. It's not looking for that vulnerable girl that's looking down at her shoes and maybe a little bit insecure and is a little bit feeling a little bit out of place where they can look to prey on them there. They are going online and being very sophisticated about it. 54% that are in the sex trade now are indigenous people. If you ever could imagine a better example of systemic racism in our country, it is the predators and that prey upon indigenous girls in communities, in these vulnerable communities. So we've also got 82% of the individuals in prostitution have experienced either childhood sexual abuse or incest. 72% of those in prostitution now live with complex PTSD. We're talking about the most traumatic form of distress a person can experience. That is what they're facing. We also have 95% of those that are in prostitution. If you ask them, they want to leave. They actually are looking for an exit strategy. So it's not something that they want to do, which is this myth out there that somehow this is like a couple of consenting adults engaging in some sort of a free exchange of money for sex. That is not the case. These people want to get out. They want to leave the so-called industry. We have 86% of those in prostitution have housing needs. 82% need some form of drug rehabilitation services, and 84% of those that are prostituted into this life were either pimped or trafficked by someone either close to or linked to organized crime. So we've got this situation here in Canada, and the need to raise awareness of this is even more critical at this National Human Trafficking Awareness Day, because we also have this national federal Liberal government, again, that is looking at decriminalizing prostitution, which will increase the demand for additional participants in that decriminalized industry. Now, this is a grave concern, as I say, to not only all families in Canada who have small children, but also to, in particularly, Indigenous communities, members of the LGBTQ community, and also we have these anybody with disabilities or just a feeling of being displaced by society. So we want to make sure that we raise a level of awareness. And what we're going to do and how we're going to do that this week is I am providing this week in the notes below, you've got an information sheet with speaker notes. So if you are either a speaker, someone who has an audience on Facebook, or if you're somebody who's perhaps a pastor or a church leader in a church, or maybe you are someone in a church who wants to share this information with your leadership, please do, because these speaker notes are something that can be shared between now and February the 22nd. That's next Tuesday. So you could share this at your church service. You could take 1 to 5 minutes. Your pastor or your church leader can just raise a little bit of a light, shine to whatever degree you feel comfortable doing it on these vulnerable citizens, and pray for their protection, that predators do not have access to these individuals, and that our government does not open the floodgates and expose the citizens of Canada to greater threats by decriminalizing prostitution, which again, it appears they're going to be doing very soon. So let's get that information out there. Make sure you stay tuned to the National Leadership Briefing. We've got a big National Leadership Briefing coming up on March the 4th, and midweek touch points between now and then. We're going to continue to work on all the other strategies that we're executing, engaging in that leadership election process, constantly scanning the horizon, looking for those other threats to us, continuing to the maximum pressure campaign on those members of parliament that will not apologize for advancing a piece of legislation through the House of Commons without consulting with us. And of course, I'm referring to Bill C4. So we're going to continue to do all of that, but we need you plugged in. But in the meantime, and in this immediate short time ahead of us, please receive the information below on human trafficking, acknowledge that it is a threat that we must face, and take that information and use it in your hands. Thank you so much for your time today. We just pray blessing over you. We pray blessing over your family, and we continue to pray for our great nation of Canada. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
It's time to wake up from our slumber
and stand together, united as one. One family, one body, one church.
We will not walk past the vulnerable.
Say nothing, do nothing, and turn a blind eye.
We are citizens of a great nation.
We are good Samaritans to our neighbors.
You are not alone.
We are the largest unified voice in Canada.
So we stand
united. This is our rally cry. We are Christ to our nation. This is our battle cry. He shall have dominion from sea to sea and from the river unto the ends of the earth. Righteousness will reign. Justice will prevail. We are united.